Hello, this is the Global News podcast from the BBC World Service, with reports and analysis from across the world. The latest news 7 days a week. BBC World Service podcasts are supported by advertising.
This is the Global News podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Claire McDonnell, and in the early hours of Sunday, the 20th of May, our podcast is dominated by one story: the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, which has taken place here in England at Windsor Castle. The ceremony combined British tradition and pageantry with African-American culture. We will bring you the highlights of the day as 2 billion people across the globe watch two people make their vows to one another.
Harry, will you take Meghan to be your wife?
I will.
Meghan, will you take Harry to be your husband?
I will.
You could hear the crowd outside, when they said, "I will," and the crowd went and we all laughed inside. So there was really, really nice moments like that.
We'll hear from the spectators who came to Windsor from all over the world to celebrate Prince Harry and Meghan's big day.
It's been unforgettable. I feel as though I'm in a dream.
So as we record this podcast, they are partying into the night at Frogmore House in the grounds of Windsor Castle. They being the newlyweds, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, otherwise known as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. On Saturday, they married in St George's Chapel in what had been billed as the wedding of the year, with billions watching around the world. The guests a mix of actual royalty and showbiz royalty, plus more than 100,000 people lining the streets. Our royal correspondent Johnny Diamond was in Windsor following the ceremony.
After one part of this service, Prince Harry turned to his bride and said, "Wow," and with good reason. For an hour or more, guests gathered under the vaulted roof of St George's Chapel. Here, 600 years of royal history is entombed. Up at the front, his brother gamely chatted to him to keep his nerves at bay. Both princes dressed in the dark frock-coat uniform of their old regiment, the Blues and Royals. The Queen is usually the last to enter a room, not today. In she came, dressed in lime and lemon, purple and grey. And with her the Duke of Edinburgh. This was his first appearance since his hip replacement operation in early April. He walked unaided. And in came Meghan Markle, a simple dress with a long oval neckline, a flowing veil, and reaching back behind her, a lace train that must have reminded everyone of the endless train that Lady Diana Spencer trailed so many decades ago. She took the arm of Prince Charles and walked on, and at the altar she met her prince. "You look amazing," he said. "I am so lucky." She smiled a lot. He looked more concerned. It's been a long week. Thomas Markle, of course, did not make it across for the wedding, but more than one parent was missing from this ceremony. Diana, Princess of Wales, was not forgotten. Her sister, Lady Jane Fellows, read from the Song of Solomon. And then a corner was turned.
The late Dr.
All the way from Chicago, Illinois, the president of the Episcopal Church took this polite, archetypally English service by the scruff of the neck and reminded people why they were here.
When love is the way.
The Kingdom Gospel Choir. This service was getting seriously fun. Members of the congregation didn't quite know where to look during Bishop Curry's address. As the gospel choir let rip, at least toes were a-tapping in St George's Chapel. And then the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby.
I, Harry, take you, Meghan,
I, Harry, take you, Meghan,
to be my wife,
to be my wife,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward.
from this day forward.
The couple stood facing each other, looking into each other's eyes, the same as countless others have. Across Meghan Markle's face, a broad smile. Prince Harry, too, was smiling. And now, his hand in hers, he had a partner for life.
According to God's holy law.
According to God's holy law.
In the presence of God.
In the presence of God.
I make this vow.
I make this vow.
Rings were exchanged. For her, Welsh gold. For him, a band of platinum.
They have declared their marriage by the joining of hands and by the giving and receiving of rings. I therefore proclaim that they are husband and wife.
And there was a reminder, in case anyone had forgotten, that there was a very important grandmother in the room. On the steps, in the lunchtime heat, outside the west door, the household cavalry waited. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex slowly made their way out of the chapel. Naughty bridesmaids jostled their bouquets. And on the steps of the chapel, they kissed.
Johnny Diamond. Well, after the service, the new Duke and Duchess of Sussex set off on a carriage ride through the streets of Windsor. A huge crowd had gathered in the town to watch the celebrations. Our correspondent Helena Lee joined them.
This was the moment the crowds had been waiting so patiently for. The first glimpse of the newlyweds as they made their way down Castle Hill, the start of the procession.
Well, we've been waiting 8 hours for that, so as they went past, it was just amazing.
Worth every minute of coldness and tiredness. Phenomenal. Overwhelming.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm just shaking. Oh my gosh.
In an open-top carriage, under the bright May sunshine, they passed tens of thousands of people who'd lined the narrow streets. Many had camped out for days. By this point, exhausted but desperate to see the happy couple. Some felt the moment passed all too quickly.
Oh, very quick, very sad. It's like 2 seconds, and then we'll expect more.
Many in the crowd had dressed up for the occasion, some draped in flags, others wore tiaras. One lady wore a T-shirt with a proposal, Prince Harry, I'm still available, it said. Even dogs joined in the fun, wearing Union Jack collars. And what did Lloyd and Laura from Mid-Wales think after waiting 8 hours for their glimpse of the royal couple?
I think it was really good. I think it was great.
Helena Lee talking to the crowds there. Well, with 5,000 journalists and support workers, 160 plus photographers and 79 international TV networks, the wedding of Prince Harry to Meghan Markle was a truly mega media event. Here are just some of those who covered the royal wedding.
We are journalists and we are so excited to be able to be here because it's such a historic event, not only for the UK but also for the world.
Everywhere I look around, I see people outside trying to get the best possible spot, hotel rooms that they've rented, pubs that they've rented. Every nook and cranny in this town has been rented by us, the media.
We're covering the royal wedding for CBS this morning. We're in a bathroom in the hotel. We've got our sink, which is a storage area. Our whole main setup is built on top of the bathtub. And the toilet is just for storage because we can't close the door all the way.
Us French people were so enthusiastic about this wedding. We're doing a special edition actually the whole day from 6 a.m. to midnight. So that proves that we're really into it too, even though we're French.
Have we had a royal wedding in Canada? Yeah, no. Hockey players get married. But we still follow what's happening. It still matters. They still know all the news, and they for sure will be watching on Saturday.
Australians have always been interested in the royal family. Keep in mind, the Queen is the Queen of Australia as well. She's our head of state as well. It's on prime time on a Saturday night. So it's the perfect time for everyone to have a barbecue during the day and then settle in for a great night of watching the royal wedding from here in Windsor.
You can hear any language you can imagine from all over the world. You hear them speaking Arabic, Portuguese, Spanish, whatever, and you think, whoa, this really turned into a big TV studio, Windsor. It's super cool.
Just some of the international media there. Well, Meghan Markle was born and raised in Los Angeles. So what about the American viewpoint on the wedding? Vladimir Duthier is a correspondent for CBS News. I caught up with him after the ceremony in the Heart and Garter Hotel opposite Windsor Castle.
The experience was incredible. There is nothing like a royal wedding, and for me as a reporter to be able to experience it and to report on it, and the size of the crowds, the well-wishers, and the thousands of people who've come from all over the world just to see this one brief moment, that moment essentially when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, now the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, rode by in their 1883 Ascot Landau carriage, waving to the crowd. I mean, you could just hear the roar of people from practically the entire 2-mile stretch. You know, all too often, a lot of the stories that we cover are tragic and heartbreaking, and it's nice to do a story that is centered around love.
And there's, of course, another important element in all of this. Meghan Markle is a mixed-race African-American woman. That featured very heavily in the service, didn't it? We had that incredible address from the pastor. We had a gospel choir singing. This country has never seen anything like that before. How do you think that would have played out with audiences in America?
I think that it proved that, the Duchess is sort of bringing the royal family into the 21st century, and that you have someone who may not look exactly like you or who may not be from the same country as you, but they are nonetheless a part of your family. I just wrapped an interview with that gospel choir, and they were so moved. And for them, they said, sure, that was certainly a part of it for them, but what was most important was the love story. And if you think about it, we're here at Windsor Castle, where almost more than 80 years ago, in 1936, Edward VIII abdicated the throne because he was not permitted to marry an American divorcee. That horrific moment for a lot of people 80 years ago, which led to a constitutional crisis, directly led to this moment that we witness today, which is the sixth in line to the throne was able to marry an American divorcee who's not only a divorced woman, but she's also mixed race.
You've been there in the pressure cooker of international coverage and a fascination with this wedding for the last few days in Windsor. What has been the highlight for you, the standout moment?
Wow, the standout moment. To me, it is sort of that one moment where I was at the position on Castle Hill to see the now married Duke and Duchess of Sussex ride by in that 1883 Landau Ascot carriage. There was another moment too, which was yesterday. I was standing right outside the gates of Windsor when Prince Harry and Prince William came out of Windsor Castle to greet some of the people that were lining the streets, 2 meters away from where I was. It made me think about how close these two brothers are.
As far as your audiences go, would you say there's still a huge appetite for stories about the monarchy?
Given what I saw this weekend, I would have to say yes. I didn't see any protesters. All I saw were people cheering and waving, Union Jacks and, wearing silly outfits. And even if you are not supportive of the royal family as an institution, anybody can support falling in love, and on a blind date, no less. We should all be so lucky to meet the love of our lives on a blind date.
Vladimir Duthier, CBS's news correspondent, who's been in the UK covering the royal wedding. Now, one of the biggest questions about the big day, as with any wedding, was the dress. A closely guarded secret. Here's how the BBC commentators reacted on catching sight of it.
And it looks to be an exquisitely cut and in many ways minimal and traditional dress with a splendid veil. Meghan Markle, the bride, is wearing her hair up. The veil is being caught in the May sunshine.
Stunning.
A wave for the crowds.
You know what I like about it? It does what I said. It fuses that sophistication and chicness that Meghan brings to her outfits, but it's got that real romance. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It is Claire White-Keller for Givenchy.
That's amazing. Congratulations to Claire White-Keller.
Earlier, the BBC spoke to Anna Murphy, fashion director at the UK newspaper The Times, about whether Meghan's choice of designer came as a surprise.
Claire White-Keller, who's the British designer at the French House of Givenchy, was a name in the frame because she's a British designer, but she wasn't a favourite. Looking back now, I think what we didn't factor in is that Givenchy is a label with a history of dressing very beautiful, very famous Americans. Grace Kelly was a fan, Jackie Kennedy used to wear Givenchy a lot, and most notably actually Audrey Hepburn wore Givenchy regularly and actually had a wedding dress designed by Givenchy for Funny Face back in the 50s that is somewhat similar to the dress we've seen today, a very similar so-called bateau neckline, that rather sort of restrained but slightly revealing neckline that Meghan Markle's boasting was actually prototyped, little did we know, back in 1957 for Funny Face. It very much is a case of less is more. A couple of years ago, Meghan Markle, in an interview, little did we realise how interesting this interview would prove to be. She was talking about wedding dresses and she said, and I quote, "Classic and simple is the name of the game, perhaps with a modern twist." And I think this is what she's very much delivered with this dress today.
Anna Murphy. Still to come on this podcast.
Now, the power of love is demonstrated by the fact that we're all here. Two young people fell in love and we all showed up.
The American pastor who enthralled the wedding guests with his sermon on love. All still to come on the podcast, but first to other news. Cuban investigators examining the site of a plane crash in which more than 100 people were killed say they have found one of the aircraft's black box data recorders. Only 3 passengers survived the crash in the capital, Havana. Our Cuba correspondent Will Grant reports.
Speaking to state television, Cuba's transport minister confirmed that the investigation into the crash of Flight 972 had made an important step. The authorities have recovered one of the black box recorders, which contains key data and information as to what happened on the flight. The black box is in our hands, in a good condition, well conserved, said the minister Adel Izquierdo. He also praised the investigation team, which was working intensively to establish the cause of the crash, he said. It is important to work out whether it was a technical fault on one of the planes, given that much of Cuba's fleet is of a similar age, if not older than the aircraft that crashed. However, for the time being, none of that will bring much comfort to the victims' families. Over 100 people on the flight died when it plunged into a field shortly after takeoff on Friday. Just 3 people survived and are in a critical condition in hospital. The island is currently observing 2 days of national mourning.
Will Grant. The Ethiopian government says Saudi Arabia has agreed to release 1,000 Ethiopian prisoners, many of them jailed for staying in the country illegally. With more details, here's our Africa editor, Will Ross.
Amongst the 1,000 Ethiopian prisoners to be freed are 100 women. The release follows a request by Ethiopia's new Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, who was in Riyadh this week. For years, Ethiopians struggling to find work at home have headed to Saudi Arabia, hoping for a job as a domestic worker or on a construction site. But Saudi Arabia has been clamping down on illegal workers and last year started trying to deport 500,000 Ethiopians. Around 35,000 returned home under an amnesty.
The National Guard in Hawaii has sent helicopters to evacuate 4 trapped residents after fast-flowing lava from the Kilauea volcano cut off a cluster of homes on the Big Island. Earlier on Saturday, a short explosion sent an ash cloud towering hundreds of metres into the sky. Chris Buckler is in Hawaii.
From a mile away, you can hear the sound not of the Kilauea volcano itself, but the fissures that have opened up in the land all around it. They are volcanic vents, and what you hear is the sound of them jetting out magma and gases. At night, the sky glows orange as the lines of lava slowly eat their way through a residential area. More than 20 fissures have now opened up, but there's also concern for another violent eruption from the volcano itself.
Chris Buckler. Let's return now to our main story, the wedding of Prince Harry to Meghan Markle. As we've heard, Bishop Michael Curry, the president of the US Episcopal Church, gave a passionate speech about the power of love. Let's hear some more of his message.
Imagine this tired old world.
Well, after the service, Bishop Curry said the wedding had brought everybody together. He spoke to our correspondent, Adina Campbell.
This is a day to celebrate, to give thanks, and to pray. And the couple are the focus in many respects, but maybe they're the symbol. To pray that, because you can see their love. I mean, it really is obvious. It's palpable. Their love and relationship, you can actually see it. They smiled at each other. They kind of giggled every once in a while. You could see communication between them that was nonverbal, the language of love. I mean, for real. And yet everybody in that room could feel it and was responding to that. I have a funny feeling, I really do, that the royal couple were kind of a symbol or an icon through which we could see what might it look like if we actually loved each other.
What kind of message do you think they will take away from your sermon, the power of love that you spoke about?
Well, you know, the truth is, I think they already preached the sermon. I just gave it words. Because, I mean, both of them are passionately committed through various charities and foundations and organizational instruments. They're passionately committed to changing the lives of people, of helping children, of empowering women, of doing things that actually make a difference, both in the lives of individual people, but also in the life of the systems and structures that sometimes are part of that. And they're both passionately committed to that. And I have a feeling that they're going to have an impact long after I've flown back to the U.S. They're going to have an impact through their lives and their life together that's going to make a difference in this world. And I hope and pray that sermon sent a signal that that's what Jesus of Nazareth was really talking about, a love that changes lives and can change the whole world.
Do you plan to come back soon to visit us?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love the UK. I love it.
Bishop Michael Curry. Now, the royal wedding has given a boost to a charity based in India. The Marries Meghan Foundation works to give women in India access to menstrual hygiene products and dispel the stigma around periods. And it's one of 7 charities Harry and Meghan have asked guests to donate to instead of giving wedding presents. The BBC's Yogita Lamai reports now from Mumbai.
I'm in Govandi, which is an area on the outskirts of Mumbai. It's perhaps one of the poorest parts of the city, but I've come here to visit the Marries Meghan Foundation. This is one of the charities that's been chosen by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So when people want to give gifts for their wedding, they can donate to this charity and 6 others. This is the only foreign one that's been chosen. Its office is on the ground floor of a 7-story building. And I'm just going to step inside it now and meet the founder. Hi, Suhani.
Hi, Yogita. Nice to meet you.
Suhani Jalota is the founder of the charity. She's 23 years old and set up Marries Meghan Foundation 3 years ago. They make low-cost sanitary pads and encourage more conversations about menstruation, which is still a taboo topic in India.
In the country today, there are about 320 million women that don't have access to sanitary products. We want women to talk about issues such as menstrual hygiene openly. The women that we employ here have never gone to school or have gone to school and have dropped out. And now these women are talking in public about sanitary napkins to more than 2,000 women every month.
One of the rooms of the office has been converted into a workshop. Half a dozen women are making sanitary towels there. They make about 1,000 a day. The women live in the slums around the office. Last year, Meghan Markle visited the foundation and saw the work they do. Miss Jalota says she wasn't expecting to be on the list of charities chosen by the royal couple.
We were definitely very surprised, but we were happy that she really kept her word, that she would support us in any way that she could. We can now go to many more communities, speak to many more women, and we feel confident about what we're saying. It's kind of as a validation.
I've come along with two women from the Maina Mahila Foundation to an area where they distribute and sell their sanitary pads. It's a big slum that's right next to a canal that looks more like a sewer line, inky, muddy water with bits of plastic floating on it. Smells very bad as well. And I'm now walking through the alleys of the slum with them. And we've now just stopped at one of the houses where some of the sanitary packs need to be delivered.
Last month, यहाँ पे कोई औरत आई थी कि महीना
Archana Amre has been with the foundation since it started. She tells me how tough their jobs are.
Many people bang the door in our faces. If there are men around, the women don't talk to us. But since the royal wedding news, more people recognize us. They recognize our brand.
Yogita Lamai reporting there. And finally, to end this podcast, here are some of the highlights from the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Better for worse.
For better for worse.
For richer for poorer.
For richer for poorer.
For richer for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
Till death us do part.
They have declared their marriage by the joining of hands and by the giving and receiving of rings. I therefore proclaim that they are husband and wife.
We saw Harry and William before the service just walk straight past us. They waved at us and we got to say hello to them.
I saw Prince Harry at the start. He said good luck. I said more good luck to you.
You could hear the crowd outside, when they said I will, and the crowd went and we all laughed inside. So there was really, really nice moments like that.
If humanity ever captures the energy of love, it will be the second time in history that we have discovered fire.
Will you, the families and friends of Harry and Meghan, support and uphold them in their marriage now and in the years to come?
And that is all from us for now on this special royal wedding edition of the Global News Podcast. There will be an updated version of the Global News Podcast later. And if you want to comment on this podcast or the topics covered in it, you can just send us an email. The address is globalpodcast@bbc.co.uk. I'm Claire MacDonald. And until next time, goodbye.